And we are very proud of our program started by the Dr. Rajiv Kumar in 2012, who was Secretary of now the Vice Chairman of PCI, has really fructified into the impact and impulse of population. Uh, Despite, I think this is a great opportunity for all of us, especially the government side, uh, as how innovation can really lift the South of country into the prosperity paradox. Because the majority of the countries which are in Africa are still poor. As per one of the World Bank report, it mentioned that in 1960 they have they have spent so far 4.3 trillion dollar in the official development assistance and tried to help poor countries. Unfortunately, many of our interventions have not had the impact in the poor countries, and we had hoped that they would decide in future. In fact, many of the world poorest countries in 1960 are still poor today, and even worse, at least 20 countries were poor in 2015. I'll share the survey which the World Bank has done, and it mentions the top 20 countries, and 18 countries belongs to Africa, and two countries are out of Africa. One is Kuwait. The Kuwait per capita income in 1960 was 34,000, and in 2015 it dropped down by 12% and came down to 29,000. And Venezuela, 8,000 to 4,000. Because these countries had never tried innovation and science R&D in the program. Yes, all the 18 countries like Zambia, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Zimbabwe, Senegal, Burma, Rwanda, all these countries are from Africa. So this is, and then the problem is there. This is a great opportunity for Indian minds, especially from the government and the private sector, and with our international partners, our respective partners from USA, Japan, and other partners to do and help the poor in the world. Because 70% of the mass is still poor. We are a 7.3 billion people standing in the world. And still we stay often the 4.2 billion are still living at the bottom. So with these words, I'd like to hand over to my team leader, to start with. Thank you very much. Hello. Yeah.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for that introduction. And without much ado, I'd like to hand over this session to Mr. Munish Gupta, who is going to be the moderator for this session. And he's a member of the FICCI Startup Committee, and also he's the president of the India-Rwanda Friendship Association, and has been supporting the India-Africa Partnership programs that are being led by FICCI. So over to you, Mr. Gupta.
Thank you and good morning. And what a lovely morning. We are here to celebrate South-South Cooperation Day. So let me welcome, first of all my special panelists and friends. Going in the order of, I guess, first of all, Niranka, thank you for those opening remarks. Mr. Shenoy, thank you for making the time to join us. And let me introduce my lovely esteemed panel, Mr. S.K. Varshney. He's the head of international cooperation from the Department of Science and Technology. I'm sure you can read the name, but yes, it would be lovely if you could raise your hand so that people recognize you, acknowledge you. Mr. Varshney has been a staunch supporter of the bilateral and multilateral cooperation programs that are led by FICCI as the implementation partner on behalf of the Government of India. And the Department of Science and Technology is also a great partner of with FICCI and other institutions, large institutions and players like the USAID and DFID and United Nations institutions called Millennium Alliance. And Millennium Alliance has been a great pathway to Africa and really supported South-South cooperation. We'll talk about that later in the program. Let me also welcome Mr. Rene Van Berkel, the UNIDO representative. He's the country head, I guess, at the regional office in India. Welcome, Rene, and thank you. I believe that you have already penned the letter of intent to work with FICCI and the Department of Science and Technology in the very stellar and prestigious program that I just spoke about, the Millennium Alliance. And we welcome UNIDO's participation, and we hope and believe that we can bring in elements that UNIDO is so good at, pushing and promoting, especially South-South cooperation. So welcome again. Our dear friend, for many, many years, a staunch supporter of various programs of FICCI, Mr. Nehal Sangavi. He is the Senior Advisor for Innovation and Partnerships from the US Aid, from the Embassy of the United States of America. And my compadre American, welcome. Nehal, lovely, good to see you here again. And thank you for all the support and encouragement that you've lent to the Millennium Alliance from the very beginning, and you continue to do so. And you've seen how the pathways have been created on South-South cooperation. So we'll make you talk about it later in the program. Mr. Emil, I think we've lost your video. Maybe you're trying to catch up on bandwidth, but Mr. Emil is the second counselor from the High Commission of Rwanda. Like Iti said, I am the president of the India-Rwanda Friendship Association, the special love for Rwanda. And my journey in East Africa started with setting up, projects for India in Rwanda. And I'm so happy that Mr. Vashne and the Department of Science and Technology, all the way up from the minister down to the secretary and all his colleagues in DST have supported this stellar program that FICCI leads called the India-Rwanda Innovation Growth Program, and it has done incredibly well to the extent that that became a model for us to launch the Ethiopia program, and we have finished the first year of both programs and are beginning to start the second year this later, probably by the maybe next month. Also, a great welcome to Mr. Kunal Prasad. He is the COO of Cropin Technology Solutions Private Limited, one of India's beautiful examples of how we have grown indigenous innovation, made them stellar, gone cross border, and I'm glad to mention to everybody here that Cropin, which is a full stack agri tech organization, has grown by 325%. That's incredible. And today, I think you launched or started in 2017, but you are you have registered tremendous growth in the last 15 months. And 60% of your revenue, I believe, comes from overseas. And you've tied up with probably more than 100 B2B enterprises in 60 countries across Asia, Europe, and Africa. That's a great example. And we look forward to your doing better and sharing your thoughts with us. So, let's come back to the subject. Why are we here today? We are here to celebrate South-South cooperation, and I think that is the only way to register socio-economic impact development across the world. You know, a majority of the world is still, as we call, South. South means people who are still developing. And India 30, 35 years ago had to look at all of its own technology, pretty much grow everything indigenously, and Mr. Vashne would vouch for that, whether it was DST or DSIR, all the beautiful labs that the government of India spent, billions of dollars and a lot of love creating, are the ones that gave us the inherent internal growth. And then in the new paradigm, we have started cooperating with the development partners who have played a role in pushing economic development across the world, like USAID, DFID, and others. And of course, UN has been behind all of this. So we are here to discuss today the new partnerships. How do we work and going forward, how do we create sustainable enterprises, scale them, and continue to forge South-South cooperation? Let me start with you, Mr. Vashne. Welcome again. As head of International Cooperation, Department of Science and Technology, let me ask you, what do you think is the role played by science, technology, and innovation in fostering South-South cooperation? And by way of example, can you share some of the programs that were initiated by Department of Science and Technology to foster South-South cooperation?
Thank you, Manish ji, for calling me first and giving me an option. I think before being the first speaker, I take the liberty of speaking on the South-South cooperation in general first, and then coming to experience what my department has got. So normally, when we talk about South-South cooperation, we are talking about cooperation amongst the developing country in global South. Now, this is very strange that during the Papa Declaration of Argentina in 78, we decided what is North and what is South. And they were not geographical North and geographical South, but developed country and developing country. That is how they were classified. So when we are talking about South-South cooperation, please don't confuse with the geographical boundaries. It is primarily developing countries which are being played. So it's a tool which is used by states, international organizations, academics, civil society, and private sector to collaborate and share knowledge, skills, and successful initiative in areas such as agricultural development, human rights, urbanization, health, climate change, etc. The plan established a scheme of collaboration among developing countries and least developing countries, mostly in geographical south. It also established the first time a framework for this type of cooperation incorporated in practice the basis of relation between sovereign states, respecting their sovereignty, non-interference in internal affairs, and equality of rights, amongst others. Innovative forms of knowledge exchange, technology transfer, emergency response, and recovery of livelihood led by South have been transforming lives. What makes me a bit happier, the country of the South have contributed to more than half of the world's growth in recent years. That's something very amazing. The intra-South trade is higher than ever, accounting for more than a quarter of the world trade. The outflow of FDI from South represents a third of global flows, and remittance from migrant workers to low and middle income countries have reached $466 billion last year, which has helped a lot. So what I'm trying to say that there are very good platform already in place. And if we talk about example, before coming to my own department example, I would like to uh, convey some of the well-established facts, some of the good examples. For example, potential of South-to-South cooperation, such as Cuba's support in fighting Ebola in West Africa, Mexico's experience in diversifying corn product to improve health and nutrition in Kenya, knowledge of strategies to reduce hunger shared by Colombia to Mesoamerican countries, lesson from Chile to Caribbean on product labeling as a measure to end obesity, amongst many others. So these are some of the well-known global examples. Now, coming to Department of Science and Technology, coming to India, we are fully realizing, like I come from science and technology, so we know science is for everyone. And that is how we would like many countries who are in South should be working together. And we have been working not only with our immediate neighbors, we are working with countries on Far East, we are working with countries in Africa, we are working on countries in South America. So there are some specific programs which we have launched, and Munishji is here as an example how we did India-Rwanda innovation partnership. So idea was that not only we take Indian entrepreneurs to Rwanda, but to help them how we could inculcate the entrepreneurial practices in those countries and let people come, let local people come in the spirit of taking risks and moving further. And I am very happy that this program has done wonders, and now we are going to replicate it. And not only Rwanda has asked for its continuation, but we are going to replicate it in Ethiopia and some other African countries. Besides this, we have been fighting on hardcore subjects like health. So malaria, AIDS, tuberculosis. India has been working with all these countries in in Africa and in South America. We are also in regular faculty training with countries in our immediate neighborhood, with Asian countries, with African countries, and we are training them, we are helping them in further improving their scientific infrastructure. We would like not only they should be less, uh, least vulnerable to the diseases, but we should be addressing issues like improve farming, improve infrastructure in terms of entrepreneurship, and taking innovations further. So there are a number of examples, and we are working with these countries. So I think, Munishi, I would like to stop it here on your first question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Varshney. That was very good to explain, one, South-South cooperation, and secondly, India's role and DST's role in it. Let me also welcome, now we have our friends from the Ethiopian Embassy, Mr. Solomon Tesfaye, and also Madam Emebet Eshet. And from the Department of Science and Technology, our very good friend and Mr. Varshney's colleague, Dr. Jyoti Sharma. Special welcome. Let me move on this dialogue now. Let me go to, before I come back to you, Vashni Saab, a little later, but let me move on to Dr. Renee Van Berkel from UNIDO. And Mr. Vashni has just said that South-South cooperation is instrumental in creating a major shift, a major move forward in growth and development for developing and least developed countries. And South-South cooperation, we have seen, has grown rapidly in the last 2 decades in scale, geographic reach, intensity, and modalities. How would you list, as UNIDO, for UN institution, what are the major milestones that you have seen in this cooperation and development? Today, as we celebrate the day, we might as well understand what are the milestones we have achieved.
Yeah, thank you very much. And let me start with also appreciating the leading work of Vicky on this South-South cooperation, and particularly through Millennium Alliance and the partnerships which have been highlighted. So that's much appreciated. So I think that also with the 6 rounds of award, it shows going from strength to strength. And I also want to maybe highlight the work of the government of India in putting so much emphasis on South-South cooperation. And if you look at that in the UN system, India took the lead to create this UN-India Cooperation Fund, $100 million fund, which is helping South-South cooperation. So that's very much appreciated. UNIDO, as the UN Industrial Development Organization, of course, is responsible for what is then the SDG 9, which includes then innovation, technology, and industry, and has then also the responsibility for the South-South cooperation, or South-South and triangular cooperation, if we are now more precise. And I think that it's a matter of common but differentiated challenges. So we keep the sovereignty of the nations there to challenges that are solvable through shared knowledge, technology, innovation, and investment. And it's not one size fits all. I would like to, Munish, to turn your question a little bit around, that you say, what's the benchmarks? I would rather, or the milestones, I would rather say, what are some of the trends which are emerging? And I would like to highlight maybe 3, and then give some examples to underscore that point. So I think that, first of all, South-South cooperation has become a kind of a means rather than an outcome, where in the past there has been a number of projects which were as the explicit objective to achieve South-South cooperation. I see this more and more becoming a means of doing business, a means of development, a means of international cooperation. I think that we still see the quote-unquote classical examples of a technology transfer, and I can give some example. UNIDO is doing a project under this UN-India partnership fund in the UN in St. Vincent and Grenadines on processing of arrowroot. So that's a traditional example of a local produce which is available, where Mr. Varshney was also referring to. It's locally available. It could go into markets, but it needs to be developed and commercially processed to have a value in the international markets. If I look close UNIDO, with support from DPIIT, we worked on neem-based pesticides in West Africa, where these were where neem cultivations, nurseries were set up, and then some processing facilities, and then created also the capability to test this in crops in Ghana, Nigeria, and Sierra Leone, and create technology transfer and also help them to improve productivity of agriculture. So that is still the projects which are typically having an outcome of South-South cooperation. But I see, if I look at the work of UNIDO globally, I see more and more projects where South-South cooperation is just a means of building up best practices and so on. So I was myself very much involved in the global clean tech programs, and we see that the networks that brought up to 50 countries globally together on resource efficiency and clean technology, and that have now taken a normative role in developing guidelines for industrial parks that are socially inclusive and also environmentally friendly, taking that forward. So there is this role of bringing in also the knowledge and capturing the practices of the countries, India, but maybe also less developed than India, so there's the different gradients there. So South-South cooperation has become more a means of doing development and international cooperation rather than a specific outcome in that sense. So my second point is that maybe South-South cooperation has been expanded a bit beyond just the technology transfer and investment. So the traditional ways have been like, I have a piece of equipment which I can put in a container and ship, or I have a solution in one way or another. The container is a bit iconic for that, but it's a kind of a perception that I have a solution which you can apply. And now there's more development on what you also see reflected in the notion of partnerships. So joint development of solutions, of locally appropriate solutions. So if I may just mention another example of some work that UNIDO is doing, we have a globally established what we call a global network of sustainable energy centers, which on a regional basis look for appropriate energy solutions, in particular for people who don't yet have energy access. So one of the most recent regional centers is for the Hindu Kush Himalaya area, which is the eight countries in the Hindu Kush Himalaya region, so North India, Afghanistan, Pakistan, China, Myanmar, to try to find energy solutions for people who live in the highlands or in the mountains for their energy needs. And this has already been done in other regions, in the Pacific Islands, in the Southern Africa, and so on. And it's looking then at policies, but also appropriate solutions, technology solutions. So I see this element of joint development more and more happening. I think that my third point is that I think there's more and more recognition that South-South cooperation is not one directional but multi-directional. So it is not going from a technology owner or provider to just a recipient, like in the example I mentioned before, neem technology being established in India, being transferred to West Africa, but it's kind of a bilateral, bidirectional or multi-directional way there. Just to illustrate my point, and that in that sense, India has become a provider of solutions, but also a recipient of South-South solutions. In that regard, I'm sure you're all aware that India is the only country that still uses DDT. It still is entitled to use DDT for fighting malaria and other vector-borne diseases. But UNIDO with UNEP and others are working on alternatives. And this alternative strategy, which is trying to take form right now, it is informed by using BT and neem and long-lasting insecticidal nets. And this is basically combinations of technologies which come from China, from Indonesia, and from India. So we see that as a joint development of technologies, and then India also knowledge institutions like the NBRI, the National Botanical Research Institute, and the Pesticide Formulation Technology Center developing solutions for India. My last point is maybe linked to the clean tech innovation, so the startups, and I see that Cropin is also here, but we see also other examples of clean tech startups that we have tried to help to mature from India, and their first point of sales has actually been overseas. So one example, and it brings it back to my home country as well, is like Saga Defense Engineering in Mumbai created a floating garbage collector, which is an autonomous drone basically, to collect plastic waste from surface water and so on. And this was developed here in India. It was first commercially trialed in the port of Rotterdam, which is my home country. So that links it back. So maybe I should leave it here. I think that it has become more of a means of doing things rather than a specific outcome. It has become more focused on the whole process of technology cooperation and joint solution identification. And then I think it's also the multi-directional one. And that means also that in terms of data, perhaps it is more, less tangible to say, okay, what's the volume of South-South cooperation? We are more looking at what can we do in terms of joint needs assessments, and then linking that with opportunities and then developing partnerships. So I will leave it here for my first introduction. Thank you very much.
Oh, that was very well enunciated and very well put, Dr. Rene. I think that's the way we need to look at and visualize and move forward with South-South cooperation. Let me come to my other panelist, Mr. Neil Sangvi from USAID. You know, both Mr. Varshney talked about and more Dr. Rene right now of how how looking at South-South cooperation and doing South-South cooperation has changed. What's the USAID perspective on this, and what has been your thinking and action process for driving South-South cooperation, and why? I mean, everybody would wonder, US and USAID, developed country working with India. What do you do in South-South cooperation? Please.
Great. Thank you, Munish, and thank you again, Vicky, for this great opportunity to speak about South-South cooperation. This is, of course, a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. As you alluded to earlier, I've been following the trajectory of the Millennium Alliance for several years since inception. And that's a great example of a platform that is heavily involved with South-South collaboration. I can allude to that again in a couple of minutes, but let me just answer your question first. You are absolutely right. Why would USAID be working in this capacity? I can honestly say that this is no longer my grandfather's USAID or my grandmother's USAID. USAID has, of course, been around in India for 70 years or so, but we operate differently now. We fully recognize that in India, we are in full partnership mode. The two previous speakers also alluded to this importance of partnership. No longer do we have a donor-beneficiary relationship with India. We fully understand that India's value is far, far bigger than a traditional USAID relationship. And so about 7 years ago, we began to turn the ship a little bit in India and figured out ways that we could work that was truly recognizing India's strengths. And South-South was one example of that. Initially, we started out at the USAID mission in India by really focusing in on Kenya, Liberia, and Malawi. We started taking innovation from our ag sector, but also from health and other sectors that we work with, clean tech, health, education, et cetera, to these countries. And we quickly realized, as Mr. Varshney said at the beginning, that South doesn't mean South in the traditional sense. So that expanded. So now we have programs that we've tried and tested in India that are now operating in Nepal, Bangladesh, and I'd like to really highlight Afghanistan. There is no doubt that India plays such an incredibly important stabilizing role in the region. And so looking beyond the neighborhood is important, but looking even within the neighborhood is critical. And we've seen all sorts of wonderful technologies that are development oriented that may be cost appropriate. I'm not going to use the word jugaad, I'm not going to use the word frugal, but just cost appropriate technologies that can be implemented in a South-South manner. Those technologies from the mission perspective are broad. Water ATMs, digital payments. I'd like to highlight the great work ZMQ does, for example. ZMQ is an organization that we support through the Millennium Alliance. And by the way, the Millennium Alliance has sent dozens and dozens of organizations abroad now through the great support of our partners like DFID. And we're very proud to know that groups like ZMQ are having impact around the world. Really, just like the two previous speakers mentioned, I think it's really tough now to find a region in the world where development innovation that was tried and tested in India hasn't made an impact abroad. It has, all across the world, the Caribbean, South America, Africa, certainly North America, Europe, I mean, just really everywhere around the world. And we're very proud of being involved in that journey. I will say that the second key to how we're now looking at South-South collaboration is not only by diffusing these technologies, but by ensuring that there's access to returnable capital associated with these technologies to make these technologies sustainable even when they are diffused around the world. And that's not easy. Most lenders in India don't necessarily feel comfortable in supporting some of these social entrepreneurs as they go abroad. And so that involves a mindset change that we're hoping to help alleviate through programs like loan guarantees and others, which would somehow maybe reduce a little bit of the risk, provide some seed state support, and then back it up with debt or equity investments that would allow these entrepreneurs to flourish around the world. In the interest of time, I'm going to stop there, Manish, but I'm happy to talk about Millennium Alliance if we have time later on. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, and it's very important for people. I think a lot of the audience today and the participants today are aware of the Millennium Alliance, but I think we can't stop talking about it because it's just such a beautiful platform. And again, I've been a part of it from the very beginning. And hats off, I can tell you that I go around the world talking about this, and I can tell you that Mr. Vashne, I hope you endorse that. But there is no chamber of commerce, and also Dr. Rene, I will say this very, very clearly, even as a media person, there is no chamber of commerce in the world which has created a center for science, technology, and innovation, and further commercialization of science, technology, and innovation, which has been at it for the last 15 years. Other than FICCI, I have not seen one. That is why I am always there, standing shoulder to shoulder with my friends and colleagues at FICCI. And I can tell you that this would not have happened had FICCI not struck a very creative relationship with the Department of Science and Technology, and had the Indian government not taken that leap of faith to create a public-private partnership. This is the most beautiful example one can see of a public-private partnership that started in India, that has created an international partnership now, that has multilateral institutions, and has directly impacted. I mean, we see hundreds of technologies, millions of jobs and people benefiting from this, and now cross-border, south-south. So this is a beautiful platform. Thank you for all being here. Let me now move to my dear friend, Mr. Emil. I don't see you on video. Maybe you're not on video for the sake of bandwidth, but if you could turn your audio on. My next question is to you. I hope you're there because I do see you on the platform. Can you turn your audio on? I just want to make sure that you are there, you're listening, and then you can respond to this question. Emil?
Munish, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Okay, so even if you don't turn on your video, you should, if you can turn on your video, would be very nice.
Yeah, the video is on. The video is on. I think it's a matter of bandwidth.
Bandwidth. Okay.
Yeah.
Because so let me ask you, Emil. You know, I am very proud to have started these two programs, the India-Rwanda Innovation Growth Program, and the success of that, as Mr. Vashne said, translated into launching the India-Ethiopia Innovation and Technology Commercialization Program. But we started with East Africa for a variety of reasons. East Africa is closest to India. We've had the Indian diaspora there for years. We've worked together for a long period of time, and we've seen collaboration. Yes. But how do you see the impact of the South-South cooperation in Rwanda and East Africa? And has it truly created and generated that socio-economic impact development? I think you're witness to this bilateral program that we've had going now for a couple of years.
Yeah, thank you, Munish. Thank you, Munish. The impact is really visible. I have first to convey our sincere thanks for the invitation. I know the High Commissioner of Rwanda would have liked to participate in this, but she has mandated me to represent the mission. Hello, Munish, can you hear me?
Yeah. We can hear you. Emi, please go on.
Yeah. We particularly thank Mr. Nirankar Saxena, the Deputy Secretary General, to have invited the mission to be part of this noble event. Rwanda, South-South cooperation means a lot because, it's a country having sunk so deep and now it's resurging with focus on development and socio-economic transformation. So we look forward to share our experience, but also to learn from others. So South-South cooperation for Rwanda, it immediately draws the attention to the bilateral relations between Rwanda and India. The cooperation and exchanges between Rwanda and India, they've been growing from strength to strength, and this really meets the definition of South-South cooperation. If you go by the UN definition, South-South cooperation is a means of development by an exchange of knowledge, experience, the technology, information, capacity development between and among others, among other countries, and through governments, civil society organizations, academic, national institutions, networks to accelerate the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals for the participating countries. Now, Rwanda and India, they are doing what they are doing. It's a good example of South-South cooperation. So, in addition to the political and economic cooperation programs, we have several initiatives that fit well the South-South cooperation framework. Now, the case in point, Munish, it's India-Rwanda Innovation Growth Program, as you have mentioned. It fosters the bilateral relationship based on science, technology, and innovation, STI. And FICI itself and Munish Gupta ji, in particular, they have been driving that. The objective of this program is to match the socioeconomic needs of Rwanda by linking the Rwandan public and private enterprises with the leading edge Indian technologies and innovations. But there is a need to scale up such initiatives. There are some impediments, particularly related to finances. So to bridge the gap, we think this is where the triangular cooperation comes in. This is what Mr. Dr. Rene was talking about. Financial support by a donor or funding agency or technical cooperation among two or more developing countries. Actually, this is what definitely what UK aid, US aid, or other agencies have been doing through the Millennium Alliance. Now, the biggest issue, how do we scale this up and touch even more other sectors? Now, Rwanda, it has developed a number of homegrown solutions which have seemed to work well in our situation. This is almost similar to these examples you have been mentioning about India, indigenously produced technologies and programs. In Rwanda, we have developed what we call Muganda, Budehe, the Gachacha, and the justice sector. And this have really have had a big impact on the socioeconomic life of our people. And Rwanda is open to share with others. Rwanda is ready to learn more from the Indian frugal and flexible approach to innovation, and we are really benefiting from science and technology from our Indian partners. Maybe I should stop here by now and let the intervention continue, and we shall keep on exchanging. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emil. And let me, for the sake of all those attendees here and participants, underline that, look, we through this panel today, given you actually an illustration of how and who are the partners that have enabled South-South cooperation, and it's actually working. So it's the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. It is FICI as the Chamber of Commerce with its Center for Technology Commercialization. It is partners like US aid, on the multilateral level. So triangular cooperation beyond the South-South cooperation, looking at new paradigms, new ideas, as Nehal mentioned, going beyond the typical grant financing to now encourage people to scale. You talked about scale with probably looking at new debt options. And right here in the panel, we also have a living example of how we have actually created these partnerships across countries and delivered South-South cooperation. So let me, before we move, I give more comments and bring some other people back in. Come to Kunal. Kunal Prasad is the Chief Operating Officer again of Crop and Technology. Kunal, You've heard from all the speakers today about South-South cooperation and what it means, and we've seen things happen. And Mr. Anil talked about how it's given results in Rwanda. Give us your journey of how Kurapin has gone into so many countries and so many relationships. How did it happen, and how did you benefit from all the South-South cooperation?
Okay, thanks, Manish, and thank you for this wonderful invitation. It's been one of the wonderful journeys that we have seen at the Millennium Alliance, the platform that has been developed. A quick journey of Propin. We are an AgTech company, and when we started off back in 2010-11, we started building our platform in India. But we were a part of the second round of the Millennium Alliance, and we were given to explore a country in Africa, and we selected Kenya as one of the launch platforms countries for us. And I think that was the first country that ventured outside of India, which gave us the learning that it's all the South-South countries. It's not very different. It's the same set of challenges and opportunities that exist. And if we can bring in cross collaboration and bring the learnings of one region into another, the transformation could be much more faster. And I think that was the biggest learning coming out of our first implementation outside of India. With the confidence that we got from that particular experience, we then started expanding in different other developing countries in Africa, like Ethiopia, Tanzania, Mozambique, and solving different problem statements in all of those countries. From a tactic perspective, just to give you a quick brief, like the technology has, from the Millennium Alliance, helped farmers from Kenya to produce sustainable, traceable fruits and vegetables and then export it to the European nations where they could actually get a much other innovations where, like in the government of Mozambique, we work with the cashew nut value chain and help close to 150,000 farmers develop sustainably grown cashew nut and then get a better premium on the produce that they have. And similar with the experience, then we work with the likes of Safaricom, which is a telecom company helping farmers to get them digitized and give them advisories around climate change and prediction models and things around that. So all in together, our first venture into Africa was the launch pad, but currently right now we learned from that and expanded it to almost 60 countries right now in the current space. So I think this was one of the best things that happened in our journey. And eventually what we have seen is that the reason why we really could expand to all of these other places was the solution which was developed was really looking into solving the critical problems of agriculture. And since agriculture was the sector which actually touched 60 to 70% of the population in all of these developing South countries, it became the fundamental problem to be solved. And I think with solving the right problem at the right time, we found that opportunity to really scale it up at that extent. So once again, thank you for this wonderful opportunity and for Millennium Alliance for organizing this. It's not just Cropin that has been benefited from this initiative, but there are, I'm sure, hundreds of other startups which have seen a similar journey of ours, and we are just a reflection of one of them. Thank you.
Well, very well put, Kunal, and you're right. There have been hundreds, I would say, more than probably 1,500 technologies that I know of, or technology-led innovations that have come out of the FICCI stable through FICCI CTech, and it's a bunch of programs. It's India Innovation Growth Program, it's Millennium Alliance, it's the India Rwanda program, the India Ethiopia program. But just to give you an illustration of these two programs, because Mr. Vashne talked about them as examples. See, this India Rwanda program took 11 technologies from India, technology innovations, and matched them with 13 recipients in Rwanda. Similarly, we've now been able to match 12 innovations and companies from India in the first year with 14 recipients in Ethiopia. And the interesting thing is, as Dr. Renee was pointing out, you see, this trend has changed. It has become a means more than an outcome. It is resulting in actual international cooperation and collaborations. This is not simply take my technology, here's the money, give me that, and I'll put it to use. This is not just simple $10, $20, $100. I think we have moved beyond the solar pump purchases from India, water pumps, and now we are looking at major collaborations. I mean, I could go on with the list of what we've done in Rwanda and Ethiopia, but I do want to mention that from your example, Cropin, that there have been those bilateral, bidirectional learnings, best practices, which you learn from Kenya and you moved on to another country and you use that for the second country, third country. And I'm sure what you learn from Africa and the rest of the world, you're also going to bring it back and implement in India. But let me come back to South-South cooperation and today being the day. Vashni Sab, where do you think, or do you think, I mean, South-South cooperation, triangular cooperation, all is going well. We've talked about the good things, the gung-ho developments. What, if anything, you have seen as challenges in the South-South cooperation, and how have you changed anything within the Department of Science and Technology and these programs you are implementing? But I'll add to that one supplementary question with this COVID-19 experience and this new order that's emerging. What is the way forward that Department of Science and Technology, Government of India sees to keep on with this South-South cooperation and to maximize its impact?
Thank you, Manishi. I would like to quote the example you mentioned a little ago of setting up of science, technology, and technology commercialization center in the Chamber of Commerce, and the faith you had in the system. Both government had in the private sector, and private sector felt support comes from the government. This has been the issue with the South-South law. The heterogeneity of the system. We have variety of people with different systems, following different systems, different set of rules, different requirements, and lacking faith, and the faith, not exactly the faith, because we do not have the harmony, we do not have the standards, and that is what causing problem in acceptability of solution. So we have to reach to their understanding, we have to reach to their point of expectations. So what Kunal told a little while ago, you see, Google technologies are doing wonders because they are easy to be adapted, easy to be understood, and that will make them much more happier, and our program would be doing wonders. What we have done, taking example also from our friend Sangvi, what USA can do, DST has also tied hand with World Bank, and we are setting up Center of Excellences in Africa. So what we have done, that we have done 5 centers of excellence with World Bank, and we have adopted another 6 centers which DST would be directly supporting it with the help of our IIT network. So what we have done, that Penn IIT network we have associated and asked them that 6 sectors they should identify in Africa where our researchers would be going, we would be regularly training them. So idea is if we could help them in raising their standards, meeting the global, coming up to the global level as early as possible. I'm not saying tomorrow they are going to come, but at least we have made an attempt that we could go in that direction. Now, as far as COVID pandemic is concerned, you see, most of the government have no choice but to lock down social and economic activity, a decision that has costed our economy. Now, here there is a difference between the northern countries and the southern countries, because what has happened in developed countries, not only infrastructure, medical infrastructure was available to take care of them, but also there were a lot of options with government to provide support. On the other hand, in developing countries, most of the workforce have lost their jobs and they have been pushed back to poverty and hunger besides, of course, dealing with the pandemic. So time has come when we should work for immediate relief, not only financials, but also towards their health, food, uh, and other economic activities. Now, what we are looking for is we have started several COVID-related programs. Of course, we have given a lot of consultancy guidance to several of our countries in Southern Hemisphere on how they could meet out. And we have also started research projects, and we would like to support the startup also in this area. So, project which we have started with two group of countries, BRICS and Asia. But we would like to expand it to any country in Africa, in our neighborhood, who would like to come and work. And what we are working primarily on 4 or 5 aspects of COVID. One, of course, the virology and epidemiology to understand how it is happening, and in future, if there is another viral attack, so how we should face future viral attack. Second, we are working on repurposing of medicines, repurposing of medical devices, also working on new medicines and new biomedical equipment. We are working on developing different kind of disinfectants which are economically viable and least damaging to humans. We are, you may say, safe disinfectant. We are also working on coatings, with different kind of coatings, which which will not allow virus to stay on surfaces. We are working on a different kind of informatics, which could help us. For example, our Arogya Setu. So we are exporting it, marketing it in different part of the South Hemisphere, so they are aware that what is the vulnerability in their immediate neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vaishnav. Let me very quickly, since in the interest of time, I would request you to all quickly, because I want people to get a hang of what we have achieved and what we can further achieve with South-South cooperation. It's Dr. Renee. What do you think? Do we need? I mean, are we working on a robust data framework to somehow understand how the South-South cooperation is taking place, and what actions could we take to sort of mobilize and stimulate and catalyze more of these, or do you think things have changed now with COVID?
I think it's a bit difficult to get the right data on this South-South cooperation, and I think I'd often draw also a little bit the parallel with innovation. It's difficult to exactly get a handle on what is the right indicators. So I come maybe from a bit of an old-fashioned school, but I see it reflected in what Mr. Vaishnav was also referring to, that we need to basically build capacity. So if we build capacity and insights and good tools and so on, then people will scout for opportunities, and innovation will happen. And innovation could happen either in the domestic context, which we call then traditionally innovation and commercialization. And if this innovation happens in an international context, we'll have South-South cooperation or partnerships happening. So I think that issues which are really important is that we create a research and innovation ecosystem on both sides of the cooperation spectrum, so that we have a mature exchange. And I think that's, even though I'm only an outsider, but I think that's also with Rwanda and Ethiopia now happening, that you try to link partners which are on equal footing. They both have strengths, and it's not like a traditional donor-recipient relationship, but it's partners which work together on solutions. So I think it would be really important to invest in processes that bring in a focus on developing solutions which meet the local priority needs. So we need to get the processes enabled, and that's often also what we say on the Indian innovation system, that if we could just get the partners to work better together, like we see in Europe and in Japan, Australia as well, where there's much more collaboration between businesses and research providers and government facilitated, this sort of triangular or triple helix type of approach, then we could spur innovation. And the same would apply for South-South cooperation.
Thank you. Very well said. And we've seen that happen in the case of Rwanda already, and it's happening now in Ethiopia. Because what India has been able to do is not just offer the technology, but get to develop joint solutions which actually meet the local needs, which are tailor-made for the local needs. So both the partners work together in collaboration. And the next thing it has done is it's we are attempting to, I would say, create those local ecosystems that lead to entrepreneurship. They start to think in terms of how to access money and capital, not just grants, and we are moving them away from grants and saying, go ahead, borrow money, take the least amount of money. In Rwanda, we've gone through several beautiful examples of how the development bank and there are many other institutions who are coming forward to help those Indian Rwandan partners. And most importantly, I think, the entire ecosystem of inculcating technology commercialization. That means how you bring it in, how do you imbibe it locally, how do you transform it into an actual sustainable enterprise and then scale it. The whole journey is becoming a beautiful entrepreneurship model, which is being taken from India and created in an own, some, lot of it is local to Rwanda and Ethiopia. So great one. But coming to you, Neil, I mean, you and I have been seeing Millennium Alliance partnership, and what more can be done? What do you see as further stimulus that can be given to enhance this platform to create more South-South cooperation pathways? And then, of course, you've seen the result of what your interventions through Millennium Alliance and DFIDS has done in Rwanda, Ethiopia, and other countries.
Yeah, thank you, Manish. So over the last 6 rounds of the Millennium Alliance, of course, we have now just somewhere south of around 200 programs that have been receiving some seed capital support. What's fascinating is typically the average amount that a recipient is able to generate post-award is actually 5x of what they've actually received during the award. And which goes to your exact point. Giving them a little bit of catalytic capital in the form of grants to begin unlocks all sorts of private resources for them to continue their journey. And I think that what can be done is ensuring that Millennium Alliance is linked directly to lenders and equity investors. So there's a pipeline of activities that we can be presenting on a regular basis to investors. So those investors can then be comfortable from the very onset of what these entrepreneurs are about. We want to introduce them, years later. We want that journey to be with the investor from the get-go, even if the investor is not investing initially, but at least following that journey. And I think the key missing link is really understanding risk assessment and risk management. If we can help reduce A, the actual risk, or B, the perception of risk, I think we're going to be able to get even more than 5x capital to these great entrepreneurs, these great social innovators. It comes down to 2 or 3 things. Number one, in the process of assessing risk, we have to also be comfortable with iterating. And social entrepreneurs and social innovators have to be comfortable with iterating, because typically what happens on the ground is not what we think about on the whiteboard. And when you are in the process of understanding adaptive management, in the process of being able to iterate, and businessmen and women are great at doing this to keep their businesses alive. But then that also allows the investor to understand they're not just investing in a company or a product or a process, they're investing in a person. And that's critical. So I think we need to make those links tighter between MA and the ecosystem. And lastly, let me say, I think we at Millennium Alliance can do even a better job of ensuring our monitoring, evaluation, and learning is translating into impact stories that we can be telling. That's not so easy to do. Typically, we meaning the entire development community, can do a better job at monitoring, evaluation, and learning, which translates into a story, which will attract more goodwill to what we're trying to accomplish. So we're doing a great job. As always, we could do better. And I'm so glad to continue to be on this journey to try to bring those benefits to MA even in the future.
Thanks, Neil. But, I completely agree with you. Couldn't agree more. I've seen it from the birth to now, and I've seen its demonstrated example and the good things that have happened in Rwanda and Ethiopia. And I can certainly speak looking at these two examples. And as Mr. Vashni said, we are trying to grow it now pan-Africa to other parts of Africa. We have also considered, I think we are very close to, once COVID passes, phase passes, then we will start something very special with Mexico, which would be bilateral, bidirectional. And, but, the important thing is that, look, the beautiful way in which we have sort of extrapolated the Millennium Alliance, output is when we started the Rwanda program, we looked at the needs of that country. We just didn't want to take 150 technologies that have done well for India in India and say, here, this is what we want to offer you. So we went and did a joint assessment, needs assessment of Rwanda, looking at Rwanda's vision for growth and development. And what came out of it, we looked for those particular technologies or specific interventions in India. And we've done the same thing with Ethiopia. So what has worked in South-South cooperation for us is working jointly between the two partners, looking at their needs, addressing the specific needs, matching the needs, and then a step beyond. FICCI, through its process of managing these programs, naturally with support from DST, continues to handhold these partners to enable them to become sustainable enterprises. And I think that's where that role, Neil, you're talking about, and all of you have said, of finding other types of capital, because capital is critical. But also that ecosystem that Dr. Rene referred to, creating that local ecosystem, helping, for example, Rwanda and Ethiopia, learn from India, create the local ecosystem, create those entrepreneurship platforms, will enable long-term, projects to succeed. And I think one Kuropin success example, Kunal and his company have done well, but I think even in COVID and post-COVID, we are looking at technologies across sectors. It's not just healthcare. COVID has raised the concern on food security, on energy security. So we've got to tackle a multitude of those things. And I think Rwanda has been a great example for us. Emil, if you're there,
yes, Manish.
What do you have? I know that one of the sectors, there are a few sectors have been mentioned by the Rwanda government. I do want to mention, Dr. Rene, that we have created a beautiful partnership. I think DST has been, they've been very prudent and telling FICCI, okay, go ahead, do these things, because we've tried new things and they work for us. See, Rwanda gave us an organization in Rwanda called NIRDA. It is the National Institute of Research. I think it's the National Industrial Research and Development Agency. And they go directly. It's something very unique. They don't as much do G2G cooperation. They take technology from outside or inside directly to market, to be. So NIRDA has become a partner of FICCI in implementing these programs, and that's how we are able to create that local hand-holding. We are able to get them all the help in Rwanda, so that the Indian partner is very happy and the Rwandese partner is also very happy, and here FICCI gives them all there. But what do you think could be done more after the first year? I think you have mentioned two areas, clean tech and textiles. I think those two are also on the UNIDO big list, Dr. Rene. But what would you like to see happen in the second year of this cooperation, Emil?
Thank you, Manish. Despite this pandemic of COVID-19, but I think today technologies have really transformed our way of doing business. It's not the classical way of taking so much time. And countries, especially in the South, they are really seeing the tremendous transformation by the way of can be an example, and you are a witness in this case. So like if really this cooperation looks at more expanding the capacity building as far as the new technology concepts and schemes are concerned, that will really help much the developing countries like in Rwanda, we have the penetration of the technological devices, and it has really helped in transforming the lives of the people. The distribution of the wealth, actually, we can talk about that, and even the decentralization of the financial schemes. Yeah, we have so many Indian technologies helping Rwandans in transforming their lives. Transfers, using their cell phones, mobile phones, and this is really something that is helping the middleman or the lower people to have access to finance. So what needs to be improved? See, technology is really doing and all are saying today. So let us focus more on the capacity building and focus on new technology transfers, because what we have today might be improved and find better solutions tomorrow. I think basically it's that. So I think that's why they based everything on science and technology development, and I'm sure that our Indian friends and members of the Millennium Development Goals are of great assistance in this. Thank you, Monish.
Thank you. I do want to mention that one of the stellar cooperations that has actually started to work, India is helping Rwanda develop industrial park, and one of the important things that Rwanda wanted to do was to create a leather park, because there are millions of hides that are wasted every year, and hides become leather and create a lot of employment beyond taking care of the environment, because there's the waste. And India has developed very beautiful leather tanning technology without pollution at all. So waterless chrome tanning, and I remember working through it. So we are very proud that India is now created a detailed project report working with NIRDA for the establishment of a leather park. This is a huge leather park that's going to be created in Rwanda, and I think it'll become an example for most of Africa, because that's a wonderful clean tech. It's waterless chrome tanning, no pollution at all. So I think technologies like these become the basis. But the last question I have for Kunal is, Kunal, actual experience of doing business and creating cross-border trade and opportunities. What is it that you would like to see happen in South-South cooperation in terms of better ease of doing business? Is there a challenge that you have encountered? And name things specifically. Have you seen anything that India could help you do better in the South-South cooperation, or the countries where you go and engage with partners? What would you like to see happen?
So I think one of the important things that we have seen in the cooperation is that when two different geographies interact, there could be much larger collaboration on knowledge technology that can happen, which can bring impact in the first time right mode, right? So when we are talking about the low income group individuals, that is the beneficiary, the first time right approach is very, very important. So when we use our delivery mechanism of bringing agriculture innovation, we have the technology innovation, but the knowledge of the local country comes from the research partners there. So we bring that together, fuse that, and then bring the solution for that particular country. So I think this approach of collaboration is very, very important, because local plus global then becomes the right combination. The second point that I would like to also make is that proven technology should be given far more in terms of approach. There should be proven technologies that should be adopted. Just to give you an example, like Vashni sir talked about the Arogya Setu, which is a proven technology, is really helping the Indian challenge of COVID to be catered. So in similar manner, we have like the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. So we are using the AI-based model to now reduce the interventions of the crop cutting experiment and bring insurance to every single farmer, and use satellite-based technology to bring that yield assessments. So which means that now farmers can be insured without doing that redundant work at the ground level. Now this proven technology can be taken to all of the South-South nations together to ensure the farmers which are highly impacted at that particular this particular point in time. And third, I think that is that the government should be the flag bearer, right? When innovations happen at the government level, like you talk about Arogya Setu or the PMFY, the rest of the institutions. Technology, with example, I think
I don't know, but I couldn't hear the last part of what Kunal said. But anyway, I think the most important thing that's come out of this, that look, the way we have done it between the government of India, FICCI, and all our partners that you see here, USAID, DFID, and UN or institutions, is collaboration. I think collaboration is key. Finding a enabling or creating a government platform as an enabler or as a catalyst for things to happen between two countries has proved for us, in the case of India, Rwanda, and India, Ethiopia, to be a great asset and a boon, because we get support from both sides. And then, for example, in multilateral partnerships or, bringing in people like USAID, DFID, and UNIDO, again, each brings strengths that can be delivered to that platform very easily, and then catalyzed for the stimulus to work as stimulus for the private sector to come in. So I think that's what that's what you said, Kunal, and that's what we've seen for all of the companies that we have taken to, whether it's Rwanda or within South Asia and other countries. So I think it's a beautiful platform. I believe in the South-South cooperation. We've seen the results. And I completely agree with what Dr. Renee said, that today it's more means than an outcome. It cannot be looked at it from a traditional old, sort of definition and point of view. And I think it has to expand, and that's why this triangular cooperation is taking place, because developed countries do believe that the South-South cooperation can actually trigger large-scale interventions between developing countries and create socio-economic impact development. We've seen the results of that, shining results of that, I would say, in the last few years. And I think we should continue to support it from all of you as partners here. I don't know if Nirankar wants to, or Ithi, you want to make a comment in the end, because we've already hit 15 minutes beyond time. This is a lovely subject. We could talk about it forever. I hope one day all of us can get together again post-COVID and do a conference and just throw out ideas, tangible ideas that can further boost South-South cooperation. From my side, thank you for joining me to celebrate this wonderful day, South-South Cooperation Day. And I would like to invite to have a final word or comment, or Abhay, if you're there.
Munish, can you hear me?
Yes, Amir.
Yeah. I just wanted to thank our partners from FICCI, and we've just been exploring our memorandum of understanding with our private sector federation, and
right.
We are looking at several sectors in which our partnership could go on, like as you have mentioned, in leather industry and textiles. This is really our priority in our country, and I hope we shall have the extension in other sectors as well.
I'm sure you will, Emil. Thank you. Anybody else for a last parting comment? Vaishnav Saab, Dr. Renee, Neil?
I would like to say that this is the time when South-South cooperation has great potential, and this is the time when we should act together. Each challenge, even this pandemic, provides us new opportunities to interact in the new circumstances, and we should make best of it. So all the best, and we'll join hands with our friends from all parts of the world. Not only South-South cooperation, but also North-South cooperation if required. And we welcome participation of agencies like USAID, UNIDO, and others to work together in this field. Thank you.
Any comments from Dr. Renee or Neil?
Manish, my only last comment is, as you mentioned, I look forward to the day when we can all meet in person at the FICCI offices and converse over the great lunch that FICCI serves. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, and thank you all for being here today. Dr. Renee, do you want to say something, or you're done?
No, I think it's fine. I really also think that COVID is presenting new opportunities, and we should not just look at the kind of medical and health related, but it will also result in other changes and we've talked about it a lot in terms of digital solutions came forward, that maybe there will be re-emphasize on the circularity, on the environment component. We will look at resilience in value chain. So there's a lot of change is happening. And if we build up the innovation partnerships and the South-South cooperation partnership, we'll just have another tool on our belt to deal with some of those challenges. So on behalf of UNITA, we also look forward to work with more with the partners on this initiative, which we think is a very fruitful means of delivering inclusive and sustainable development. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kunal, do you want to say anything, or are you happy with what you're doing?
Yeah, so I think from a plan and this opportunity. Thank you for creating this platform, everyone, DST, FICCI, Millennium Alliance, and the donor partners.
Well, thank you all, and thank you very much. And I think this brings us to a close. Again, let me see if Abe, do you want to close the meeting?
Yeah, thank you everyone for sharing your insights and stressing on the fact that partnership and collaboration is a key to find innovative solutions, help them scale and serve the entire humanity and work towards the sustainable development goals. So thank you all from FICCI, and we're certainly looking forward to host similar webinars and looking forward to meeting all of you together physically, and would love to host you at FICCI again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll close this meeting now.